This is Jim Mulhern at the Plymouth Gym on socials, and I thank you. This show is an escape from work and business and politics. We talk humor and music to artists, writers, creatives, broadcasters, talented people who impact us. We get a few things out of the way first, and then we talk with our great guest. And at the end, we handle necessary disclaimers, and we end this frivolity. If you're consuming this fine product via Apple Podcasts, thanks for your rate and review. 5 stars is nice, even if inaccurate. If you're on Google Podcasts, thanks for a like. If you're watching on the YouTubes, please subscribe. And while you're at it, if you're not feeling paltry, give us a thumbs up. All of this will help people find us so they can waste their valuable time. On today's show, super excited, songwriter and guitarist Mike Skill of the Romantics and the Mike Skill Group. I'm so excited to talk to Mike. But before that, we have some things we need to get out of the way. And the first thing is, it's come to my attention that Mattel is introducing a new generation version of Scrabble. For you born after a certain time, Scrabble is the board version of Words with Friends, but without the fun digitally sharing your personal information. So with a creative genius similar to New Coke, Mattel decided that Scrabble needed an update. Introduced for a new generation who find board games or games in general too intimidating, Scrabble Together is for them and maybe for you, according to CNN Business. The aim is that the new game of Scrabble Together brings people together, Ray Adler, global head of games at the company, said in his statement. He goes on, Scrabble has truly stood the test of time as one of the most popular board games in history, and we want to ensure that the game continues to be inclusive for all players, he said. For anyone who's ever thought, word games aren't for me, or felt a little intimidated by the classic game, Scrabble Together mode is an ideal option. Mattel said it conducted research among British board gamers that showed that competitiveness is perceived as declining in younger generations. Of 2,000 people surveyed, 35% believe baby boomers are the most competitive, followed by millennials at 31% and Gen Z at 29%. Who knew Scrabble could be seen as exclusive? So he says, instead of competing, players collaborate to complete goal cards, and there are helper cards if assistance is required. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for making board games even more difficult to pull off by having to gather more players. But goal cards and helper cards? My goal is to assemble a word, any word, and get points for it. My helper is my decrepit mind and a dictionary. Scrabble is designed for a single person to punish combatants with impossible words using Z's and X's and other strange letters loved only by librarians. You win by being a pain in the gluteus maximus, vanquishing your foes with triple word scores and rarely used, barely pronounceable words like profligate and scourge. It's not designed to be a lame team building exercise at work. So you're on notice, Scrabble Together. Notice, notice. Okay, secondly, and coincidentally, I need to talk about words because things are getting out of hand. People are going freelance with their language, and therefore I'm introducing to a grateful nation a new segment here called Pronunciation Nation. Today's special guest word, diversity. People are having difficulty with this word and others of its ilk, but today's focus is on this word. I heard Ari Melber on MSNBC, a brilliant host and jurist, attorney, and I've heard others, some not so brilliant, repeatedly getting a little sexy in their pronunciation. They're saying diversity. Don't we all flash back to grade school reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Ending it with one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Didn't we all learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division? How about those who bought stock and got dividend checks? No, the pronunciation is diversity. We are diverse. We are a diverse nation. We are better because of our diversity. You get it. You're on notice, Ari, and the rest of you. Diversity. All right. And before I formally introduce Mike, the patient rock star that he is, I'll share that And I Thank You is brought to you today by Dynamic Dairy Products. How's your milk? Your cheese? Are you cutting it? How are your curds? Are they in the way? Well, that may be going too far in terms of personal information, but regardless, if your dairy product needs aren't being met, then you need to talk to my friend of the show, Herb Churn at Dynamic Dairy Products. Yes, Dynamic Dairy Products of Ann Arbor adjacent is your go-to for dairy. You've heard of farm to table. Imagine cow to table. Dynamic has turned the fresh dairy concept on its ear by eliminating the middleman. Dynamic's fleet of low-efficiency trucks delivers the actual Guernsey cow to your home, and with a few short pulls, shoots days of fresh milk into your containers of choice. You'll feel the freshness because you're milking it. Don't ask how, just enjoy and take your time paying for it. You'll be the envy of your neighbors as they see your commitment to freshness as you work for it on your dynamic milking stool, in your dynamic milking apron, and dynamic knee-high milking boots sold separately. Lactose intolerant? How about lactose incredible? Dynamic dares you to find out. For more information, log on to freshmilkyesplease.net. Dynamic Dairy Products is cow-friendly and practices udder friendliness. Dynamic Dairy Products provides brown cows for chocolate milk. Dynamic Dairy Products is not responsible for carpal tunnel symptoms nor calluses. Dynamic Dairy Products should not be used in matters of self-defense. Dynamic Dairy Products is a division of Milky Way out there, a sub-company of Dynamic Industries. Say what you will, it's dynamic, and I thank you. Now, finally, back to the show. Mike, I can't tell you how happy I am to have you on, but I will try. But first, your
Jimmy
intro.
James. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jim. Well, I got some say there. I go, well, so it's the new dumbed down version of Scrabble, right?
it's the new dumbed down versus
Yeah.
Scrabble. What do you think about that?
So, well, I think that they might want to take some of the millions of dollars, well, whatever they make,
Yeah,
and put it to education and colleges instead of dumbing it down. Because I know there's schools here, actually, probably kids like maybe I was. I wasn't particularly, well, I was good in school, but some kids have really tough time, and
yes,
they drop out. And I had friends that did that, dropped out, and they went to night school or whatever. But there are schools here now that supply education to kids that maybe get into trouble or mess up, and then they have classes for them. Well, they had teacher strike here, and the teachers won.
yep,
And then now they're getting back at these schools, so they're taking all the money away for these classes for kids that are, less, I guess they'd call less than, but
yeah, less
same
fortunate.
everyone else. Everyone has trouble learning sometimes, and paying it. It's a lot of times it's paying attention more than anything. For me, it was. But I think a dumbed down version of Scrabble is something I don't think they want to promote. I don't think that's a Scrabble has always been something that enhances your knowledge, I think. So
Well,
that's just,
I would agree
and
with you on
there's
that.
a ton of other board games that you can go to besides it.
Well, you know what? And we had fun with it at the start, but the whole thing is, um, anybody can play Scrabble, and
Yeah.
and if you're a young kid and you're playing with a friend of yours or a couple friends of yours who are young kids, you're going to be building words pretty much at the same level. So,
That's right.
I don't think it hurts to have a competitive game and to try and pull words together. And half the fun is pulling words out of where, and then having a dictionary or looking it up on your phone to see if it's a real word, that type of thing. So I
Yeah.
think it's a great game that really doesn't need the help. But Mattel thinks otherwise. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but hey, I want to give a
Well,
quick.
it's important to me because I use
Yeah,
words every day for songs. So,
yes,
and right for so reading, get out, read books, promote reading books. Why don't they do that? Because I
yes.
have to. I mean, the more stories I read, or the more information I take in from reading, it enhances my writing for songs. It's totally the way it is, and I mean, you could go far. Look at Jagger and Richards are noted. Keith Richards, a history buff, and
Yeah.
his library is a wall full of books, and that's and Jagger's the same way. They're always when we were on the road. I always saw Ray Davies. We did tours with Ray Davies. You get up in the morning, and Ray Davies is at breakfast reading books. You say hello. You don't want to disturb him. Say, how you doing? What are you reading? You know. And then same thing with David. We toured. We did shows with Talking Heads.
David
Uh,
Byrne.
and he'd be same thing in the morning up and reading books or I see him reading the paper. I mean, musicians a lot of times, if they're songwriters, they're reading a lot. They're reading a lot. It's
That's that's so
yeah.
cool that you mentioned that, because right when you said that, and we were talking a bit before we started recording about being able to write and being able to write songs, and what an incredible craft it is. And
Mhm,
you guys, you can tell your influences, right? The Beatles,
mhm,
Kinks, Stones, but so many of those songs that were 2-minute hits are so beautifully crafted. Um, but it's difficult to write and craft those songs. I'm telling you this, right? You've written lots of them, music and lyrics. Yeah, it's hard, and you do need to be able to read and write. So
For me, the easy part is coming up with the initial spark,
yeah,
boom, that initial guitar part or that initial. But then once you get that stuff, it's putting it together and craft. That's exactly molding it into the final product. Is where the work begins. A lot of the work begins. Sometimes they come up and they're just complete all the way through. You come up with them and they're laid out right from your insides right to the guitar, right out to the and a lot of times they're not. I mean, you get it. I'm tuning the guitar and I'll come up with three chords, just banging silly chords, and I go, wait a minute, that's something, and then I have to take it from there. And yeah, but
I
the
want to,
lyrics,
I want to, I want to do a quick intro for some people, Mike, who might not be like you and me of the same generation or know of you. Just real quick, you're one of the founding members of the great band, the Romantics, from our hometown of Detroit. You're a singer, you're a songwriter, you're the lead guitarist in the band, rhythm guitarist, bassist for a while, writer of many of these hooks and licks rather, and a catalog of great hits and wonderful songs that people will have heard generations younger than us and older than us. What I like about you and Talking in Your Sleep, Rock You Up, but others, which are you've got so many hidden gems in your catalog, some of them less hidden than others, like A Night Like This and Keep in Touch and First in Line, Tell It to Carry, on and on. If you grew up when I did and you did, you know that some of these songs. So I just say that so people who are listening know your background, and just to say again, welcome. This is just great talking music with you. I've got more questions than our time's going
yeah,
to allow us, but this is awesome. So
my pleasure. Thanks for
yeah,
having me.
let me ask you some questions. So I want to give you your flowers, but we all in Detroit area grew up in the day in Metro Detroit area, right? On Beatles, on CKLW, on AM radio, then FM radio. And for you guys, we grew up listening to album-oriented rock on the rock and roll stations here at ABX and Riff and WLLZ and W4 later on, but album-oriented rock. And over the 70s, we heard all of those, what people would call classic rock bands, and people might dump Romantics into that too now. But what happened was your band, um, late in the 70s, early 80s, I'm not, some people call it new wave, but it really was a new wave of music that burst into the scene, including you guys, that really blew up FM radio, that because AOR rock and roll had gotten a little bit stale, and you guys brought a new energy and a new kind of pop sensibility, almost a punk sensibility into it. I don't want to over categorize things, right? You're a band, you're a musical band, you're a rock and roll band that can do a lot of different music. But well, you guys were of that generation, like the Kinks or like the Beatles, a four-piece band where everybody wrote, everybody sang, everybody played live, without auto tune and recorded backing and all of that, and did it beautifully. You guys were and are an incredible band, in all your incarnations. Um, so I'm just thinking, having seen you guys in the past and, seeing you coming out with the red leather and all of that, and you could tell seeing you guys in the early days how much you'd woodshedded, how much you had practiced, and you were so tight. And it was power pop, right? And you through all the years and all the albums and lineup changes and all of that. I love
Mhm.
looking backward, but I love looking forward too. So I want to talk to you about what you're doing today, but talk about that coming out of Detroit, and we talk about some of your influences. What were those bands that you emulated or the band emulated? Who did you want to be like? Kinks was
Yeah.
clearly one of them.
Yeah. My brothers were 13 or 14 in the 1950s. And I was 5 or 6 or 4, 5 or 6 in the later 50s.
Yeah.
And so I would get their records, and I was playing Little Richard, Rip It Up, and they're black doo-wop groups, the groups that sang in the alleyways where the echo was really good, or like at my school in junior high,
Yep.
Jackson Junior High on the east side of Detroit. Uh, the 4 or 5 black kids were singing in the locker room, and there's a beautiful echo. You go to gym, you come out of gym, and you're going to the halls, and you walk through the door, the locker room, and then you go out the hall, and you can hear them singing, and they're singing harmonies.
Yes.
Uh, that was all around us. And so anyway, but starting in the 50s, I saw I heard took my brother's records and put them on my little Disney or whatever Disney record player, and of course I get in trouble for taking their 45s,
Sure.
and I did that all through like the latter 50s when I was a little kid, and then up until the 60s, until AM radio, discovered AM radio in Detroit was
Yeah.
Barry Gordy and Smokey Robinson with "Shop Around." That was one of the first things that I
Oh
heard.
yeah.
In Detroit, everyone's outdoors playing in the streets. We're in the summer playing hockey in the alleyways with a tennis ball and a hockey stick, and putting boards up on the garage by the garages so it doesn't go into whatever by the fence. And
Yeah.
so and we're hearing Motown. We're hearing Motown stuff and the early stuff when it first came out, and then comes in. You get to the whole British thing comes into that. So then you've got that music. So I've got these waves of changes in music. It's from the 50s with the Everly Brothers and Elvis and Little Richard, and into Chuck Berry with Chuck Berry on the guitar, and then little Jerry Lee Lewis. Then you get into the girl groups. Then you get into the British scene comes in. Then you get into the teen groups, which was Bob Seger in Detroit, were the teen
Yep.
clubs. You had Bob Seger, Grand Funk. The Stooges had a young band in the early days. I'm not getting the name right now. I can't think of the name. Uh, but these groups were
Iguanas.
yeah, the iguanas, exactly. The
Yep.
iguanas uh, and they'd be playing. You pay 50 cents and or I think it was 50 cents for a month or for a few weeks, and you go to these teen clubs. You get in for free, and you see these bands. That's who you were seeing. You're seeing young Bob Seger and Ted Nugent and Boy Dukes,
Yep.
and before he was on a solo trip. And so that's the whole thing that really fueled our thing. Then this all of a sudden someone brings over to the neighborhood, what's this? And it's MC5 looking at you. And it's all this feedback. It's like, wow, what is
Yes.
that? And the Yardbirds, all of a sudden Yardbirds using feedback. Then it's on the guitar and all this fuzz tone and noise. And then you the group them with Van
Yep.
Bors. These groups were instrumental in creating that Detroit sound, along with the Motown thing. We were always Detroit groups are always about the choruses and the hooks. So and the MC5 were basically a soul band when they were growing up, basically doing Otis Redding and black soul songs, James Brown and that kind of thing. So we were and a lot of the bars, there were no bars that had bands at the time when I was growing up. That wasn't until like later 60s and 70s when younger people could drink. They go to the bar.
Yep.
Then you'd have bands playing. Before that, it was lounge singers. You had ladies, 25, 30-year-old, young ladies singing with a piano player and New Orleans bands. The Red Garter band was around Detroit. It was a New Orleans style band. So there, you couldn't really get into the bars. They had tea clubs, and
Right.
from the tea clubs, it went to the ballrooms or the high schools. You played high school shows.
Yep.
Um, anyway, that's how it built up in Detroit, and Detroit was filled with so much music and so much from jazz to blues to rock to soul to country. The greatest country, one of the best country stations was on. I can't remember the call letters, but I remember in the '60s, listening to AM radio and the country stations was some of the best country you could hear, and WJLB was the best soul station. And
Yes.
then CKLW blended that whole thing. From Canada, from Windsor, blended that whole thing. You get the Rolling Stones, you get a Motown, you get a little bit of that country flavor stuff, and Loretta Lynn or whatever once in a while or whatever. And being a factory town, there were so many across diverse culture that there was so much music, and that was so influential in the musicians and the bands. And with romantics, we always thought of ourselves as crafting songs that people could. I always thought of, you want to write a song that people could leave the show singing the song. So you wanted a melody they could remember after the show, and
Yes.
harmonies and short choruses and real catchy stuff, because you're basically selling yourself through your songs. You have guys complaining about your songs being on TV or on radio, selling soap or selling perfume or whatever.
Yeah.
You can't get around, you're selling yourself with your songs. You can't get around that.
How do you feel about that?
That's exactly what, if you're selling yourself. It doesn't matter if it's TV, radio, or a magazine. It's giving awareness to what you're doing is basically what you're doing.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I was just saying about your just music selling soap, about you guys. I mean, I would
well,
think,
well,
how do you feel about it?
I don't mind it at all. Like I just
Yeah.
said, your visibility is what you want, because there's
Yeah.
so many things out there. There's thousands of bands, thousands of ads, thousands of songs. If you get your one little thing in there, someone's going to go, "Hey, what was that?" And what was going on is you had the Yardbirds. I think the Beatles even were at one point, but the Yardbirds were selling Yardley, was a
Oh,
fashion
soap. Yeah.
kitchen company, shampoo for girls
Yes.
in London, Yardley, and they were doing a Great Shakes was a milkshake company in the US, and Paul Revere, the Raiders, and Yardbirds. You got the Yardbirds if you look online. Yardbirds doing Great Shake commercials, and then
Right.
the Who, the same thing, and it's just it's an extension of Andy Warhol. Just took it the next step. He noticed the same thing,
Yep.
except he put it right on the canvas, the soup can, you know.
Well, everybody does it these days. There's a handful of holdouts that don't. The Doors being one of them, because Densmore doesn't want to do it,
That's
right?
fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
Fine.
and Neil Young too, but most others they are, and it's interesting too now that you say that, because there's whole generations, my kids' age, who get exposed to that music because they see it in commercials. They see it, my son got exposed to your music by playing video games,
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto and things like that. He's like, yeah, I know that music, and it's turned him on to a lot of really good music. So
Young, what is it? 13, 14, up to 17-year-olds. Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie, brought a whole new generation that never heard talking in your sleep. They're going online. They're going, it got hits, a few million hits in a few days,
that's
a
awesome.
year or two, and it's a whole generation goes, "Wow, what is this song? Who is that group?" So you have to remember, it's always a new crop of people coming up.
Yeah.
And I understand what Neil Young's doing, and I agree with him. He's not getting paid. Either he's not getting paid, and I agree. I can't. I wish that musicians could band together and form their own streaming service. If we formed our own streaming service,
Yeah.
but we're so busy doing what we do,
Yep.
and I don't know. It's just not taking that path yet. But um, I
Yeah.
understand
No.
what Neil Young's doing, and I believe it. I agree with him. But everybody has to make their way. Neil Young can put out a record, and he's already got a gold record when he puts it out. With what I do, where I'm at in that level, is I put it out. I got to work it. I've got to work the song. I got to, it's got to be promoted in some form. And there's so
Sure.
many ways to perform now. I mean, what's the difference of it being on the radio or TV ad or a soup commercial or a toothbrush commercial than playing it out in front of your garage for your neighborhood? There's no different. I mean, you're selling something, but you're also selling yourself. You're selling. I came up through art in school. I was going through commercial art all the time. It was called commercial art back then,
Yep.
and I was learning how to draw pages by hand, an illustrator, be an illustrator, and so it's the next step is the same thing with music. You're selling yourself through your songs, and
So,
whether it's long progressive songs or short songs, your sound, your look, your sound, your look, the way you write your melodies, it's you're still selling yourself to some
well,
degree,
yeah.
whether it's a
So
little bit or not.
let's talk about that a little bit. You, the artists these days, you guys, you've got to go out and play live, right? Because that's where that's where you can make the money and sell the merchandise, and just because of the nature of people aren't buying albums anymore. Um,
Well, they
so
are. They are. I think it's up 8 to 12 million
well,
from.
they're buying vinyl again, yeah, but not like in the day when we grew up,
No,
right?
it's not like
Everybody's streaming everything, is my point.
yeah.
And so so you guys, you in the band and you and your solo band too, Mike. So questions on that. Like, how do you go about picking a set list?
How do I go about that?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, when I came up with songs for Romantics,
Yep.
those guitar parts at the beginning, all those guitar parts that start. I mean, that's my trademark. I come
Yes.
up with the hooks, I'm a good crafter of taking a chord progression and then turning it into um, something that makes you notice that part, make you go, oh, I know that hook. That's it. Oh, it makes you notice the song. It
Mhm.
draws you in, and that's my craft is being able to do simple songs with simple chords and then building it from that. Um, yeah,
I want to tell you about exactly that, about one song that I think, because you do. I think Hung on You is your most
I was thinking of that when
underappreciated
you,
song.
yeah.
What a riff. And that, Mike, so great. And that whole album, that props, I guess, to Peter Solly or to Craig Calby, who mastered it, or whoever mixed and mastered it. Those songs just jump out of the speakers. I don't care if it's vinyl or it's CD or it's streamed. That album sounds so good. That track is so good. I'd love to hear you guys play that again.
Yeah, I've been reviving that myself. That I
Oh,
was thinking that when you were talking before.
yeah.
That's one thing I was thinking I'm going to use is one that's under the wire, under the it's not noticed, but
Yeah.
yeah, that totally comes from a Who Kinks thing. That's a whole
Okay.
that kind of banging in the. I just bang the chords anyway, and I leave all the open notes hitting. They work with the chords when you
Okay.
play. If I stay in a if I play it clean and I go from one chord really nicely to the next chord and one chord and nicely to the my thing is all the noise in between the chords. The noise that's part of the attack.
Yes.
It that comes from your Yardbirds MC5 really, but MC5 and Detroit bands. It's more of a garagey. You're leaving the dirty, noisy stuff in. You're not.
Would
You're not.
would
Well,
would you
that's
have
what
played that? Would you have played that on a Telecaster?
that was. I think that was with the Rickenbacker. That one. That was
Okay.
something with that first album has a lot of Rickenbacker on it. I really just insisted on clean. He actually cleaned it up way more than we were playing clean.
Okay.
We were kind of dismayed because we wanted it to be more live and more
Dirty.
raw and more punk in your face,
Yeah.
more electrified, more looking at you, more kick out the jams, more
Yep.
we wanted it. That's what we. But when we got it, we came in, we set up. He turns a high watt amp, which is a 100-watt amp, in the corner with baffles around it, and he turns it on 4. Now, normally your sweet spot is up around 6, 7, or 8, or all the way
Okay.
up, whichever you prefer. And so when you get to 4, you're not getting the notes they don't last. They don't last. So it's more work for you as a guitar player. It's more work for you. So these things we do the tracks and we'd finish it and we'd play. He would take those guitar tracks off and then we come back and we redo guitar track. That's not the way I do it now. I leave all the raw stuff in. So we were really dismayed. We were kind of like, wow, this doesn't have any energy. This doesn't have any raw. But he was smart in the way that it was building sound. He was building sound with lower volumes and layering stuff. We didn't really do a lot of overdubs. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of overdubs on that first record. But the way he did it, now when I listen to it, I understand because you turn it up and it's like pure. It's still pure when you turn it up.
Yes.
It doesn't have frequencies that are knocking out other things and getting in the way of vocals or getting in the way of. It's all just a pure, uh, nice, good music, straight in your face rock coming off the speaker.
You
Uh,
guys,
at
you
that time,
guys,
we were so aggressive.
yes.
I still am. We didn't feel like it was aggressive enough when we were recording it. But
Well, it sounded, gosh, you guys sounded like you reminded me so much of the Kinks, right? Because when you'd see them live, it was a rock and roll show, and Dave Davies, incredible guitar player, obviously, but
Yeah.
the songs were so tight on the album, they were sung so beautifully. Then when they came out and played them live, they played them tight, but they were live. It was a rock and roll production, and it was so good. Another song of yours, real quick, as we go through it, Mike, just Hidden Treasures, your second album, National Breakout, the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
That title track is a banger.
Yeah.
There's a handful of clips on YouTube of you guys playing that live. There's not a lot of good recordings of you guys. They've got there's one King Biscuit out there
Right.
of
Right.
your live shows from the day. And there's a good one, Mike, of on YouTube right now of an early show. You guys are touring off the second album. That's really recorded well. It was one of those simulcast radio shows, but shows how good you guys were. But what do you think about going into that second album, and what do you think about that song, National
Oh,
Breakout?
well, yeah, that gets into a whole area of management.
Gotcha.
Uh, yeah, because they were so hyped on looking at the charts.
Yeah.
They were so hyped at seeing what was coming out and on the charts. And what we would normally do, we took 3 years to build that first record.
Yep.
And then when it started slipping on the charts after talking, When I Look in Your Eyes came out, Tell It
Yep.
to Carrie, and then What I Like About You came out.
Yep.
And they all went on the charts in the top 100. I think they all went to the top 100 or near about. What I Like About You was like 47 or something, I think. 74 or 47. So that's pretty good on the charts. You're in the hot one. You're in the hot 100. Once it started dropping down just a little bit, the management got in a frenzy. He goes, "You got to get back in the studio. You got to get back and record and write more songs." And and normally you would go take some time off. You get off the road. We just toured America.
Right.
We toured Canada. We should have been going to Europe. The management didn't want to spend the money to support a European tour. Nowadays, I can't go back to Europe with Romantics or anybody right now, knowing what we would be like accepted because they never opened that door, that book. And so here we are. We get off the road. We go in for 4 weeks working on jamming and working up new songs, and going into the studio after those 4 or 6 weeks. First writing, then pre-production. This producer comes in, Peter Sully comes in for the second record, and we do a month of tearing the songs apart and putting them back together, taking out any kind of like stuff that just you don't need that part, you don't need this, or
Right.
sing it this way or sing it that way. Take that drum beat, do it this way a little bit, change it a little bit. You're tightening up the rough edges. That's I get the word tight all the time. Up until a week ago, I just showed guys, you guys are so tight. Me and friends play, and I'm playing my songs with Romantic songs. I'm doing it's my thing. I'm not trying to recreate Romantics.
Right.
I'm playing my songs I wrote, and or band songs I wrote and my songs I wrote in the same breath. And what was I getting to before that?
Just about well, we were talking about not being able to get to Europe, And
Okay, so
yeah,
we're in the studio, pre-production,
yep,
and then from on the road, off the road for a week, into our studio writing, pre-production, another month, go to the studio. We went to Florida. Second album was in New York at A&R Studios
yep.
on the Avenue of Americas. They're great. They tore it down. It's a great studio, a great old studio. It's been there from the 40s, I think. Everybody
Wow.
recorded. Van Morrison recorded. Billy Joel, everybody. I think guys from Four Seasons. Anyway, uh, we set up live because we wanted more raw sound. If you notice, it's a lot rawer than the first album. It's not so compartmentalized.
Right.
To set up straight, mics at the amps, 3 feet, mics 3 feet, 6 feet, 9, 12. So we had these rows of mics, and we played straight live out. And yeah, so I had to come up with all these guitar. I had to come up with all these guitar things to
Sure.
start the writing process. Here's what I have. Here's what we got. Check this out. And then either have a title or some words, and we group together and jam, and that's what we came up with in 4 weeks. And it was like a mad rush. Then we went on the road right after it was released. And the problem was, well, we did go to Europe for that one mistake, and then which caused tension in the band. This is all really heated crap within inside you. You can't stop to regenerate, re-energize.
Yeah.
And so that's where the tensions came. And then I was fired from the band after the record came out. All these tensions of all this stuff. We're on the tour for the second record playing. We're on the tour for the first record, did the second run, went on the road to Australia, and we're playing the second record instead of the first record. It was just silly. It was just
Right.
really. But anyway, we did it. What the thing about me is now I look at it, the first two albums are my favorite. Really,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
favorite. There's great songs on, Talking in Your Sleep and in Heat record and other records, but just the raw energy of how we came up with it and the thing we went through to get that record out. And the label didn't understand it because the first record was much cleaner and straight laced and more. Uh, the second record has a lot more attitude and interface. It's a little more live. They didn't like that. Billboard, the drummer would watch the charts as well with the management, and
Okay.
there was a thing called National Breakout. These were
Yep.
songs that were going to be national breakouts.
Yeah.
So when we called our record National Breakout, it was kind of like, who do they think they are calling their record a national breakout? Like they're going to get on our national breakout chart. And I think that was the first tinge of like it didn't take off as far as
That's so interesting, because I'm looking at that track list, Mike,
and
and
then to fire your main songwriter.
yeah.
Songwriter, that didn't help either. So
Oh man. Well, so and I'm cognizant about not making you talk about anything that you don't want to talk about regarding the
well, no,
drama
we'll talk
within
about
the
I talk
band.
about everything. And
Where was the tension in the band then? Between whom?
well, it was kind of well. I was making I was coming up with things about royalties, and
Yeah.
management was getting a little worried. I think
Yep.
we're selling a road at the time. This is back in 1980s.
Yep.
And then also, if you look at the first record, you look at the second record, and you look at the third record, and the second record, we're like worn out, beaten up, bedraggled, or whatever the word is, kind of messed up, laying back. Wow,
Yeah.
what a rough night in the studio, rough month, 6 weeks, rough 8 weeks. That's what the cover looks like. Let's look
Yep.
like we're beaten down. And the rest of a few people in the band wanted it to look like the first record.
Right.
Statues with these suits,
Sure.
and I was like totally into Clash and the Jam and the punk bands coming out and Ramones, and I'm thinking like, no, man, we got to stay on the front edge. We don't want to get stuck. And so if you look at the first record, second record, then I was out, and then they repeated what they did on the third record with pink suits. I mean, you see what the problem, the gnashing of the art of the whole,
The quality of the work was not there in the third album. It just wasn't. The couple good songs off of it, but nothing like the first two.
Well, I was coming guitar as a guitar player. I was Yeah, one other thing, when we formed Romantics, I was playing bass from junior high. I learned guitar in junior high.
Hmm.
Played guitar with my did I say that right? I learned guitar in junior high, and then had a little band in junior high, the High Tide, and when I was 16, and then from that I went to bass with Marinos on drums in high school, and so
Yep.
we were together all through high school, and then all through the 70s, 10 years through the 70s after
Yep.
high school, playing bass, and then uh, we went on the road and we put a little group together in 1976, called the Motor City Rockers. And we
Yep.
went to New York. We called up Hilly Crystal at CBGB's.
CBGBs.
We got a
Yeah.
gig at CBGB's, went to CBGB's. We got a truck and we drove to CBGB's, first time out of Detroit. It was a big deal to accomplish that, just to call up, put the equipment in the truck, go. You go to New York, you get a hotel, you stay one night and you come back. It was a big deal. And
Yeah.
I was playing bass. I came back. We took time off. We could never find a singer that, at that time, the uh, the way people looked at bands was, you had to have Robert Plant, you had to have Mick Jagger, you had to have Iggy, you had to have uh, whoever else, lead singer disease is what it is. LSD, we call it. And, where you got to have this guy up front. But what changed that was the New York scene and a Velvet Underground and writing your own material, not listening to the whole corporate radio thing and
For
whatever.
sure.
Yeah, the whole thing changed right in the 70s, mid 70s. It was what happened was in New York, I was rediscovering the underground music of Velvet Underground in that. And excuse me. And so I came back. I started the band, and I came in, and we called all my friends around Detroit, going, um, "Look, we're writing some songs." And I loved the Flamin' Groovies came out, and the Jam record came out, and
Yep.
that's where I go, wow. And then the Kinks, I knew I could write songs like the Kinks, and the Beatles were an influence, and the Animals, those three bands, and
Yes.
so. I came up with I had cassette tapes of these songs. I called Marino Sub. I go, listen, man, I brought over the Flamin' Groovies record, and I go, I can do this, man. I can write these songs. And I showed him the Jam, the newspaper, NME,
Yeah.
New Music Express, with the Jam full page spread with Paul Weller with his white shirt, black skinny tie, black, short hair. I go,
Yep.
man, here you go, right there. Write songs like Flamin' Groovies and look like the Jam or throwback to the 60s.
Sure.
And then we did it. We got together, and then we go, wait, who's going to play guitar? We started calling these guys. They didn't want to play Chuck Berry licks. They wanted to play Led Zeppelin licks. They wanted to play.
Right.
So we were about simple songs, and I go, well, I'll play guitar. So the first album, I hadn't played guitar in eons. So I got back, and I'm still gauging myself, putting myself back into that mood. So by the time the second album, I'm starting to get it back a little bit. Get it back. First album was really raw and straight ahead. So the songwriting was there, but my performance live, I'd be the guitar. I didn't want to use guitar pedals. I just didn't want to use pedals. And
How come?
most guitar players in Detroit just turn the amp up. They just turn it up and just Jimmy McCarty. I mean, turn the amp up. Nowadays everybody uses a little pedal, but so I was doing that, and I was having a difficult time in that area. So when you turn it down to four in the studio, and I'm playing, I'm going, oh God, you got to turn it up at least. But anyway, I got around that. But that's just another little thing.
Well,
That
hey, let's fast forward.
no, I think they wanted to go around. They wanted to. We were touring with Cheap Trick. They wanted this big metal-y kind of thing going on. See, that third record sounds kind of heavy, more loud, Rick Nielsen tone.
Yeah.
Which is great. But Romantics were romantic tone. Romantics were about the guitar chugging and not necessarily a loud droning. You hit one chord and it lasts for a year.
So you left and then you came back. And that
Yeah,
was
they called me up, and the label had told them after their third record, you need to get skill back, or we're going to get a songwriter to come in to do songs, write
right.
songs. So they called me up and I came back and I brought in about 10 song ideas and that was in Heat.
Yes.
It was a little, now I look back, it was a little, what changed, the scene had changed.
Yeah.
When the first two records was during a punk kind of new wave
Yep.
interface thing. And I always wanted to be that interface Stooges MC5 Detroit Raw thing. And then by the time we got to 80, 83, 84, bands in London were going from that to dance, the new romantic thing, Duran Duran, Spandau
Yep.
Ballet,
Yep.
Roxy Music was the big influence.
Yep.
And I loved Roxy Music. In fact, before Romantics, we were talking about we had Greg Upshur, who was with the Seatbelts. Me and Jimmy were talking to Greg Upshur about putting together something along the lines of Roxy Music, because all the girls were going to see Roxy Music because they dressed great, they looked great, they had great songs,
Yep.
and we hung out with a lot of great looking people that liked that kind of that scene, that arty
Sure.
kind of rock scene. Anyway, so it went from punk to that whole thing that kind of overproduced. It went from no production to leaving mistakes in a lot of the punk songs, Ramon, a lot of raw stuff to this overproduced thing. I don't want to say overproduced, more produced.
Highly
Record.
produced. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what changed on the In the Heat record. That's why there's more production.
Well, so
Steve
that
changed the years.
that album did great and did great on MTV too.
Yeah.
With those videos. And then after that, I think Jimmy leaves the band, correct? Marino?
We were on the road. The record started taking off. Well, MTV helped us with What I Like About You. That made that a hit.
Yep.
It wasn't in it. It only went up to the middle of the charts at the top 100, and then it went off the charts. And then
I'm fast forwarding, Mike, to In Heat, where I
yeah,
remember Talking in Your Sleep
obviously,
and One in a Million.
right.
You got lots of run on MTV with those songs, especially Talking in Your Sleep. That was
Well,
almost a
we,
renaissance for you guys.
we, we finished the In Heat record in Florida. We had 11 songs, I think,
Yep.
and the producer comes out. Okay, well, we're ready to go. We're ready to leave leave the studio, go to the hotel, go to the beach, have lunch, whatever. He goes, nope, we need one more song. And he goes, Mike, what was that thing you were playing at the studio? And that's when in pre-production, and it was the bass line. I was fooling around a bass, and I came up with the bass line for Talking in Your Sleep. And me and Jimmy would jam on it. And then and he goes, what was that thing you were doing? We were in the studio in Florida. And he goes, what was that thing you were playing on bass? And he goes, run that down. And I just start playing. He goes, okay, what do you think? He goes, Jimmy, put a groove to that. And put a groove to it. I play it, and he comes out and he says, look, let's work on this for a minute. So we took a piano. He played piano. He's like a genius piano player.
Yeah.
He played Procol Harum, late version of Procol Harum and Cherry Reid, all
Yes.
the, and we went into the control room. We had the piano out, and me and Jimmy are hanging around the piano, and the other guys were somewhere in the room, and we're just running that down. We came up with what became Talking in Your Sleep, and we recorded it, and that was the first single that went right to
Man,
number two. Number
that
two.
that just took off for you guys. And then but that album was you introduced Kaz into the band, right?
Yeah,
Rich had left um
that's right.
for some reason. And so did you were you feeling like how did you feel about handing off over lead guitar to Kaz and playing bass?
Well, I got back on the road. I had visibility. I was seen again.
Yep.
Uh, that I was still writing. I was still playing guitar, writing. I wasn't playing all the songs live.
Yep.
Well, they kind of played more and more. Bass was like second nature. I could just pick it up and go. I played for 40 years,
Got
and
it.
so I didn't mind. I could go on. It made it easier. I didn't have to worry about things. I just go on and strap on and go play. Guitar, was a little more. I had to. I was more like an arranger I was more like a producer in the band,
Yeah.
or a stage director in the band. I had to, direct
Yeah.
what's going on, and so I could just like lay back. So I enjoyed that for a while.
So Jimmy leaves the band, Marinos, the drummer,
Yeah.
I believe after that album or that tour. Is that right?
He walked off the bus. He walked off the bus, and I didn't see him again. And I didn't talk to him again. The management talked to him, but I don't know what was said between him and management. So I'm
Mm,
not sure if manager said, go ahead, who cares? Or if they said, no, we need you, or what, I don't know. And we were just like, what's up? What's up? And so it was just one of those things. He went his way, we went our way, and we continued on.
yep.
And we pulled in a drummer, and we tried to match up. I think we matched. The guy happened to play left-handed. He was Greek. He was
Yeah.
from Florida. He was in a band. The management had managed. They pulled him out of that band, put him in a, and we
Okay.
went once again a month of this pre-production month, no time off. Uh, I think mismanagement in
Right.
my opinion, but take the time off, write the songs correctly. We came up with some good tunes, but it just didn't have the
Yeah.
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 We rushed it. We rushed into it, and uh, I'm sure if I went in and redid those songs, it would come off with a lot more energy, attitude, and probably probably would be more listenable for me.
Well, I saw you guys in Ann Arbor touring with Dave, the
Yeah,
drummer, and you guys were still great.
yeah.
And then, couple years go by, fast forward, right?
He's a great drummer. He was a good drummer. He's just
Yeah.
when you come up with a guy you grew up with, and it's this whole thing,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
it's hard
And,
to.
and Jimmy sang for your band too, right? He's like,
All four of us sang. All four of
yeah,
us.
he
Yeah,
was like your Levon Helm. He was
yeah,
your Don
yeah,
Henley, but
yeah,
but
yeah.
but but then you fast forward and Dave's out of the band. And how do you meet Clem Burke?
Kleinberg was not. I think Mr. Candler, Cause Candler, met him in L.A.
Okay.
Cause was hanging out in L.A. and moved there, and
Clem Burke is the drummer from
Tom
Blondie,
Tom
Monster.
Kane.
Yep.
Was that?
I said Clem Burke is the drummer from Blondie for people who are listening
Yeah,
and don't know,
yeah.
and he's a monster, an incredible player. Yep.
Well, he's different than Jimmy. Jimmy's all about the groove and the beat.
Yep.
Clem's more splashy and
And lots
uh,
of fills.
tries to be a Keith Moon imitator, but yeah,
Yes.
but he's just he's not as diverse as romantics are about the grooves,
Yes.
and Clem wasn't so much about the grooves. He was more flash. More,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Jimmy's the
Okay.
groove. Man. Groove is about the kick drum and the snare. If you watch Marinos, it's about the snare and the kick.
Yes.
And
Oh yeah.
I do that now. I bring guys up, teach, and I teach them Detroit style of playing, the East Coast style of playing. You know, I
He's
re,
on. Yeah, he's
but I work.
legendary on that snare drum. Just
Yeah,
right on top of it.
it's no messing around. It comes from a soul thing. It comes from the Memphis group. It comes
Yep.
from the Memphis group that grooves there, and it comes from Booker T and the MGs. Those guys, the guys that played behind the Blues Brothers and Aretha Franklin and all that stuff. Otis Redding. One of my favorite guitar players, Steve Cropper.
Steve Cropper. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
Steve Cropper, and all groove masters. I didn't
oh yeah.
understand. I remember being a kid in high school. Me and Jimmy were great jamming, and he would do a lot of stuff playing. And then all of a sudden, he was just doing grooves. I didn't get it at the time, but later on, it's about the feel, and I think he was learning that. And it's great to have someone that does a lot of stuff, but it can hamper a song. It can get in the way of a song. I mean, if you let it.
Sure. Well, and we'll get to your current drummer, but I'm kind of moving through time. So you move on, and Jimmy leaves, and Clem comes in, but then 2003 rolls around, and you guys your last album, really your full album of originals and a few covers. You cover a great cover of the Kinks' "I Need You," which is on that the album called 6149 that you guys put out. And Jimmy comes in for a few songs and on the kit, right, which is cool. What did that feel like, coming back to do that and kind of getting back together after you guys had been kind of in and out, and to put out that album? and then doing a little mini tour, I think, with Little Steven and the Underground Garage Tour. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we were there was lawsuits with management from up until 89, I think it was.
Okay.
And that stuff settled, and then there was some other stuff going on. So it was hard to get interest by labels when you're in the middle of turmoil with lawyers and that kind of thing. And uh, Clem suggested Brad Elvis. Brad Elvis was with the what was the band? The Elvis
Oh,
Brothers. And
yes.
yeah, so Brad came in, and Brad, I still work with Brad. Brad still works with me. We did a lot of stuff on my stuff. And so we had Clem. Clem couldn't. We recorded some stuff. Clem couldn't do a tour because Blondie was going out. So we got Brad, and Brad still. I still talk to Brad every few weeks or every month or every whatever, whenever.
Another great drummer.
Yeah,
You have to be to play your in the Romantics, and a showman. Um,
yeah,
just great. You
yeah.
know, I there was a bootleg of you guys on that tour with Little Steven's Underground Garage Tour. And Little Steven says of you guys, which I think is great. I don't know if you've heard this, Mike, but he says this band carried the garage rock flag all by themselves for many years. They are from the American rock and roll capital of the world, Detroit. And then he introduces you guys
Yeah.
carrying the
And
garage rock flag all by themselves. I thought that was pretty cool. And I didn't think it diminished you guys because you're way more than a garage band. But to what you're talking about, straight ahead rock and roll with a groove, but also with really tightly written songs with hooks and melodies and choruses and bridges, really well crafted songs. I think a really cool testament to you guys the way
I think you wanted to give
you do it.
credibility to the whole thing of garage rock,
Yes.
garage rock. You wanted to give credibility, and I have no problem with that because it's all it is about simplicity and melody and craftsmanship and songwriting and being pure to your roots. I think it's part of that. And I understand. I don't understand Americana as much as I understand
Right.
garage, the word garage. Um, uh, it's funny you brought it up too. You said the same thing. I got it last week. I played a show and I hear the word tight. Man, you're so tight, and that's really that's really a good word. It sounds less meaning than it is. It sounds like it has less meaning. It's you say it and it goes away, but it has more meaning than you think because when you're tight, you can't skate from what you're doing. You can't skate from what you're doing and let all this overflow in the song and all this. You're being direct about that song that you're doing. It becomes part of a bigger picture. But when you group these songs together and they're tight, a lot of bands don't go from one song to the next, to the next, to the next, and then talk and then go to the next. That's always been the whole. If you go watch that Tartar Field show at the MC5, or even an Iggy show, or even a Doors show,
Yes.
it's it's just a certain you're directing the current towards you. You're keeping the spotlight. You're keeping yourself going. Jay Giles was one of the best bands. Our third show was with Jay Giles, Steve Miller, and Peter Frampton. I mean, how the band was so romantic, was so tight, and I still do the same thing. I still attack the guitar the same way. I still write the same way. I still get man so tight, and I've gotten that for years. And
Oh,
all
Mike, people who didn't come up like you did, you were in the scene, me as a fan, but who's seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows to see the Jay Giles band live. I got to see their last tour that Jay was out
yeah,
with them
yeah,
before he passed. Oh, it was incredible. I
yeah.
mean, incredible. And like you guys,
They were on par with the Rolling Stones. It was always joking. Rolling Stones or Jay Giles.
yes,
Stones, Jay Giles, the live show. And
yeah,
so we learned from Jay Giles. We learned. We saw them early when they were just coming up before they played Cobo Hall. They played little places in Detroit, and they were the band to see at that middle in the middle of the '70s. Because
yes.
'70s, all you had was the best thing you had was Europe. You had Nazareth, T-Rex, Sweet, Mata Hoople, Bowie. Those are the groups that we were going to see. Roxy Music,
Yep.
uh, Slade,
Yep.
uh, all those bands were what we saw. Ford Auditorium, Cobo Hall, and East Sound. And then comes along Jay Giles. It was like the rebirth of another uh, decade or more of American music, American rock and roll coming back around. Uh,
Yes.
they were progenitors of that, and we took a lot from that. The stage show. I mean, watching and craft how to craft a stage show. And I know you can lay back and talk between songs and all that, but it's important to no messing around for me. I mean, I'm up there to pull you in and dig this, dig this. Oh no, now
No,
dig this. Check. Yeah,
it's great. And when I say tight, Mike, what I mean is you
yeah.
guys are and were emblematic of a band that could play every song off of that album with without any recording. You recorded it live, you played it live, and it sounded great. And you were a band, you were playing together, and the sum was greater than the parts, right? It was
I
just
love the word. I love the word tight now because I
yeah,
understand. Here, I've heard it in the past month. I played did 2 shows here, and with friends here, and I do some of my new songs, and then I'll
yeah.
throw in. I do uh I do when I look in your eyes. I do I'm working. I was thinking about doing a couple others, but when I look in your eyes, rock you up. What I like about you. Uh, there's one other I'm missing. Uh,
Hmm.
She's
Let's.
got everything, which King song,
Yep.
and keep in touch. Keep in touch. And it's got the energy and the attitude that I've always done. I mean, I'm not
That's
cleaning it up.
great.
I'm not trying to make it purify it or anything. It's the way it is. It's the way it is. And I get these compliments and it's really it works. I mean, I think it's just because I've never changed the way I attack how I play, and and I still come out with the same attitude and how I'm going. This is what I'm going to do on stage, and this is how I'm going to attack the crowd, and I'm pulling these guys in the same way. Whoever I play with, I go, look, it's got to be this. You can't, no, you can't do that. You can't none of that extra stuff. It's got to be, So you got to kind of direct. I'm a music director with it too, because I got to tell them what not to play.
For
That's
sure.
anytime I'm doing something on my own. Don't play this. It's leaving the stuff out to make it more direct.
I want to ask you about an obscure song from 6149. Um, and that is the song Out of My Mind.
Yeah.
You know that one?
Yes, I do. Of course I
With
do.
with the late, I'm just joking with you. With the late Eddie Harsh on electric piano from the Black
I
Crowes.
My
Oh,
idea is yeah, my oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. I was just going to tell you, give you your flowers again. What a great song it is that people need to. And I'm going to put all your links, Mike, in the show notes so that people can find you and find the music and maybe I'll put a playlist together. But
Sure.
such a great song. Any memories out of recording that song?
Basically, I wanted a simple song, so
Yeah.
on the guitar, I went on the strings and I went G G D D A A E G G D D A A E. Then I did the chords G bam bam bam. Just I went down. I want the simplest thing G G D D A A E. The four strings on the guitar, the top four strings, and then it was just my rhythm, bam bam bam, and then we added the little the little hooky part, and then it was just stops. We just stops, put the
Oh,
stop in, and
that
then
little hooky part is magic, Mike.
yeah.
It's just that it's a great song and
Yeah,
yeah.
when you're beating the guitar, that's what you do. And that's basically what it was.
Oh my
It would
gosh.
have been actually. I was even going for less music in it. I was going for the whole song, just four chords. But it became what it became. So I love
Yeah,
the song. Great
that's
song.
it. That's great. So you're touring with your band in Portland. You come and you tour with your band with Brad and others, kind of your Detroit band. I've heard you talk about that. So could you see a
Ricky
day
Rat and
ever
Brad.
when you think we'd ever see the original lineup of the band play live? Would
I don't know.
Jimmy ever agree to climb behind his kit and get?
I don't know. I don't know. You can never say no. You can never
Yeah.
say no. Um, uh, but I'm getting a good response from my tunes. I still do romantic songs I crafted. Um, I'm on this side of the world right now, so I got friends I play with here. I got Brad and Ricky Rat play with me there. I got that, and Ricky and Brian. I've been working with Brian too. McCarty was with Trash Brats,
Yep.
and it's got a more it's grounded more in like a raw punky kind of a thing with the romantic overtones with my guitar from Romantics. So it's got a cool thing. I don't
I've
know.
seen it. I've seen it and I've heard it.
I'm
Yeah.
really just not thinking right now that far, and I'm just going, man, these guys are great to play with. Let's play some songs.
Yep.
That's for
Well, I was just thinking, maybe one of my listeners could pony up enough money to make that happen. Get the original four back, or maybe
who
there's not enough
knows.
money in the world to make that happen.
Who
But
knows? You never know that. But yeah.
yeah.
Uh, but when you can, we can. There's something in the thing that go to get together with people that go, yeah, man, wow, I dig your songs. I really like your song, man, that was great. And you put it together, and they just enjoy doing it.
Oh
That's
yeah.
there's no like, nah, I don't want to do that. No, that's so yeah, you get around all the the whining.
Well, you know, bands are brothers and bands are businesses, and
You know,
sometimes brotherhoods and bank accounts and all that stuff makes things difficult. But I don't know if you feel this way, Mike, but being our age roughly and seeing all these great people leave the planet, remember that couple years ago where we lost David Bowie and we lost Prince and we lost Tom Petty. It was like bam, bam, bam during the COVID years. And one thing that hit me then was, if I were an artist or a band and I had a lot of bad blood or some bad blood, and there were arguments about it, I'm thinking, nobody's getting any younger. This would be
yeah,
the time to try and get together and go out to the fans and make some money for the band, and you know reconnect with this audience of older fans, who are older but are still into that magical time of music, when they discovered your music, and they got money to pay for it, and they'll buy your stuff and your t-shirts, and they'll come to the shows. It feels like we're all getting older, right? So that
mhm.
if there's a time, we've all only got so much time on the planet. So I always think, boy, if I were in a band, I would try and get in good terms with my brothers and try and make that work to mend fences and to make it work financially. But that's just me.
Yeah, well, you got to look at it that way, and there's no negatives in that. You can
Good.
also look like if you're going to work at the supermarket every day and you do it for 30 years and you're doing the same job over and over. Do you
Yeah.
want to go back to that market and see the same people again? And do you
Oh,
want to
true.
hear the
True.
whining? Do you want to hear uh,
Yeah.
how much work is it going to take
Yeah.
if there's no
Yep.
work? And
Yep.
and I'm all for it if there's no work and everybody can be breezy and happy. Go, oh yeah, wow, let's do this, let's do that. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it, is everybody can be happy and cheerful and uh, that's the way it works best. That's the way it would work
Well,
best.
we know you're touring. Wally's out there touring. What's Rich Cole doing these days?
Rich was working with me on playing bass for a while there. I haven't spoke with him. He's got a young daughter, a beautiful young daughter he's raising. He's
Okay.
out in the suburbs of Detroit, and I've called him a few times. I haven't heard back from him yet, but yeah, he's there. Him and his wife. Yeah, they're still doing well. They're doing well. Yeah.
I was telling you about this YouTube show from you guys touring off the second album. And I don't think I realized that Rich used to sing Till I See You Again. I
Yeah,
remember
I do that. I do that song in my set. In my
it's
set,
such a beautiful song. I'd love to hear you sing that. I mean, when you come to
it's
town,
really good.
break break
Yeah,
that
Rich has
out.
got. I think he's got a band with his wife. His wife sings, and they
Oh,
do. I don't know if they're recording or what's going on right now, but yeah.
oh, that's awesome.
But yeah.
Um, do you what are you thinking about do you have any plans to get back into Detroit and play some
Uh,
gigs in the near future?
Someone's proposed a Wayne Kramer memorial in the next month or so. So
Wow.
that's in the air.
Yep.
Um, and then there's something else. Have you heard of the Hamtramck Fest?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I might be doing that.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I might be doing that on one of the weekends on the weekend.
Okay. That's
I think it's
great.
on
Um,
the first. It might be Labor Day weekend.
have you worked with Don Was?
Yes, before we were signed as a band, Romantics, we were in. There was a recording studio on 7 Mile in Livernois,
Yep.
Livernois, and it was called Sound Suite. And
Okay.
he was a producer, a gopher, owner. I don't know, part owner of that studio with Jack Tan. Jack Tan was a producer and owner of it.
Okay.
And we went over and mixed some songs. We did 4 songs for Greg Shaw. I think we used for Capitol, and we sent him the songs to Capitol, and then those songs were released on Bop Records. One of the
Cool.
songs we did was "I Hope You're Satisfied," and it had a starking resemblance to Rick Springfield
Oh,
song,
really?
to the guy that wrote the Springfield song, heard the songs that we sent. So,
You know, he's Don's got a radio show on WDET here now
oh,
called
really?
yeah, Don Was Motor City Playlist. I'll send you a link to it. He's also put a band together. They've got a show coming up in the next couple months. I'll share it with you. But
Oh,
what a what a guy who's been around. When you said Iggy Pop, I was thinking about him producing one of Iggy's albums and
yeah.
just how he's kind of come home and become part of the back part of the Detroit scene again when he's not, producing, the Rolling Stones and everybody else in there, you know. Um,
Yeah.
hey, you just made me think of him. Um,
Yeah. Well, we used to play. He had a band called the Traders, I think, and
okay.
we used to open for us, and we opened for him too. We played his son's high school, I think, or junior high back in the day, 1976 or so, 7 or 8, 1970, right, 77 or 8, and yeah, he's been around since back then. Um, and then I put out to him for the concert of colors if he I'd like to play do some of the colors thing at one
That would be
time.
great, Mike.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
So that's there. And I have to check his radio station. He picked up what you call it, the blues label,
Oh,
Bluebird,
Blue Note.
Blue Note. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he
Yep,
got
yep.
all that catalog. He got all that catalog, which is incredible.
You mentioned Concert of Colors. You're getting all these free stream thoughts coming into my mind.
Oh yeah.
When COVID hit, he put a band together and they did a concert in Detroit for Concert of Colors. Nobody could go
Yeah.
to it, right? We were all under quarantine.
Right.
And it was a salute to George Clinton and Funkadelic.
Hmm.
And they played probably an hour and a half show. And I'm going to send you a link to it. Yeah, Detroit players, Louis Resto and Dave McMurray and all the guys he plays with, all these hot Detroit players, guys who were in Was Not Was, and it's the most incredible show, Mike.
Yeah.
You know Funkadelic and so many good songs and so many good artists. It's just amazing. I'll share it with you. But
In the 70s in high school, Funkadelic played by high school. They came to play Finney High School.
yeah,
And I think someone either wore the diaper or was putting on the diaper, and
probably Eddie Hazel.
Eddie
Yeah.
Hazel, and police came and stopped the show because of nudity.
Oh,
So they played our cafetorium.
what?
Yeah, and I was a big fan from way back when they first came out because I was an artist, a commercial artist. I was going to school for, and I love the covers from Pedro, and the record covers were all hand drawn, and the music grabbed me. Maggot Brain from Maggot Brain, I was
Oh,
totally brain.
So good.
And then later, when I rehearsed with Romantics, early Romantics on Gratiot and 7 Mile Road, there was a furniture store right next to Carmen's Italian restaurant,
Yeah.
Carmen's East. And there was a furniture store. And there was a guy called, oh, God, I know it. I'll think of it. He had a record, he had a radio show. It was either every Friday or Thursday or Friday, or it was every week from 5 to like 7 or 8. And he played all funk. He played funkadelic and everything.
What station?
It was, I think it was WGPR.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, probably was.
Maybe.
Yep.
And it was the
Wasn't Mojo, was it?
Why I know that the oh God,
Electrifying Mojo?
Electrifying Mojo. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. In fact, when Prince came to town, Prince knew about him, and Prince was on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, we're gonna have to do an episode 3 of this because we could go on and on. This is
so
fun. Yeah.
I saw Funkadelic in the early days, in like mid-70s, and everybody came on. I saw George. I talked to George back here in Portland. He played Portland, and Romantics. I proposed that Romantics do some funkadelic songs and turn them into rock songs. So we did "I Want to Know" and oh God, what's the other one? We did "I Want to Know" and another one.
I know what you're talking about, and I'm trying to pull it out of my head.
I know, and so we did 2 funkadelic songs, and we rocked them up. And they were out through Westbound. They were connected with Westbound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, we'll figure it out for the next time we talk. That
you and your folks. We did you and your folks.
Okay.
You and your folks, me and my folks, and I want to know if you can get to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gotta love that. Gotta love Bootsy.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Was one of my favorite guitar players. Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna have to split this episode.
And also, I was
2 episodes. This is so fun.
I was friends with the Brides of Funkenside too. They were really, really sweet, really nice.
Wow.
They were always in the studio I was going to. They were always coming in and recording. They're really cool. Yeah, they were the greatest.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to thank you for so much good music, Mike. I wasn't joking. I'm going to split this into 2 episodes, and it's going to be part 1, part 2. I love this walk back into history of your creativity and of the Romantics and of Detroit rock in the day. It was such a rich time.
I'm getting off track and going with all these different subjects. It's such a flowering thing trying to talk about it. It's it's like a 10-headed snake or something.
You can go in a million directions, but I'm going to finish this up and thank you and say a couple things and finish up the show, and then we'll talk afterwards real quick. I'm going to do a couple disclaimers and some thank yous. And I Thank You show is not meant to be a substitute for a proper nutritious diet. Our low production value should not take anything away from our low production budget. Thoughts of suicide after listening are normal and will pass. Repeated listenings may make you a weirdo, but that's the plan. If you're listening in your car, windows down, and share what Midwest nasal sounds like, guests appear courtesy of themselves, and we apologize to them after the show. And I Thank You is a production of Arthur Street Weirdos, written by yours truly. Theme music is by Royalty Free. Logo and brand creative by Brad Lutz. Special thank you to my friend and yours, Mike Skill, Jimmy Doom, Gume. Thanks for listening and watching.
Love you, Jimmy Doom.
Love you, Jimmy Doom. Yep. And comments and correspondence can be shared via email at andithankyouShow@gmail.com. And I thank you all.